Twilight question and answer. My name is Amy Fulcher, and I'm an extension specialist with the UT Department of Plant Sciences. For tonight, we're asking that you leave your video turned off or turn it off if it's not already. That will help all of us have the highest quality sound. Also, please mute yourself through the webinar. Use the chat box if you'd like to ask a question. Again, that'll just help ensure that everyone can hear. So this is a difficult time. There's a lot of uncertainty, and we want to help you. We want to support your business. We're very fortunate in Tennessee that garden centers are considered an essential business. That's not the case everywhere. And you all may be aware that in at least one other state, garden centers have lost their privilege for not adhering to CDC guidance on social distancing and so forth. So we want to help protect our businesses. And we're very fortunate tonight to have someone here with us, a special guest, Stuart Cofer with Cofer's Home and Garden in Athens, Georgia. Stuart has been very proactive in taking measures to make his garden center safer for his customers and for his employees, and he has graciously agreed to come across state lines and help us and share some of those measures tonight. So after Stuart shares some of the tips that he has and practices that he's been able to successfully implement in a garden center environment, we'll briefly talk about proper use of gloves and money handling. So in addition to Stuart tonight, we have specialists from the UT Department of Food Science and the UT Center for Profitable Agriculture, as well as representatives from the Tennessee Department of Agriculture to try to answer any questions that you have about operating in the midst of COVID-19. And I want to take this time to thank the Tennessee Department of Agriculture for their support. So at this point, I'd like to, Stuart, if you can unmute yourself if you're muted. And I wanted to ask you to tell us a little bit about some of the social distancing measures that you all are taking there at your garden center.
Right. Thank you, Amy. First of all, I'm not sure why you guys picked a Georgia boy to help out. But hey, we're all in this to learn and share ideas with each other. And I want to say hello to Michael Valk. I've known the Valk boys, all 50 of them, I don't know how many there are, for a long time. They have a great operation up in Johnson City, Tennessee. Athens, Georgia was the second city in the state of Georgia to have a shelter in place or stay at home ordinance, I believe around March 13th. So we were way ahead of the curve as far as Georgia and maybe in the South. When that happened, Athens, for those of you who may not know who Athens is a very liberal community. And they always go above and beyond what actually the rest of the state of Georgia does. So I knew when we went to a shelter in place, the leaders were adamant about everybody stay home. And that was right at the beginning of our spring season down here in Georgia. So I knew we had to start doing everything we could and do everything right from the get-go. With social media, you can't afford to have mistakes made. So we started adopting all the CDC rules as they started to come out. And as you guys know, they've changed at sometimes almost daily. So we started adapting the rules as they came out. And every time they changed, we would try and change with them. But over time, what we've done, a couple things is obviously there's only one way in the store and one way out, different entrance and a different exit. We have it marked. We actually have the doors propped open all day long, whether it's to the office, our storerooms, the front doors, so customers never have to touch the doors. We have tape on the floor, and I use just plain blue painter's tape, nothing special, to mark where 6 feet is for people to queue up in front of the checkouts. We have signage everywhere, either on the floor or on the doors everywhere, telling people to social distance. It's all on our Facebook page, our social media about social distancing. And we always have been reassuring people that on 3 acres, and most of us have large lots, and most of your business happens outdoors in the open, that we want to assure people that not only can our employees maintain 6 feet between each other, but between customers. And everybody, customers and employees, have been real good about that. In fact, nowadays, you pretty much don't have to tell customers to do that. They've seen it all 1,000 times, and they do it too. One other thing we've done that's been really helpful is we open an hour early for people 60 and older to come in and shop before we open to the public. And that's been a big hit. We don't wait on them unless they ask us to. We just leave them totally alone. So they go in and they shop and do what they need and feel free and feel safe. And it's done such a good job that people have told everybody about that. And one of the interesting things about all this is that I can tell we're getting a lot of customers from the box stores, the Home Depot, the Lowe's, and the Walmart. They are afraid to go to those places because the congregation's there. Even though in our town, I don't know about up in Tennessee, but they are limiting how many people go into Home Depot and Lowe's. I believe it's 100 is the number they use. But people are afraid to go to those places because they don't want to get in a crowd. We also offer curbside service, which I'm assuming a bunch of you guys do. It has started to slow down as more people are feeling safe and they're actually coming in the store. But we were getting about 40 email orders per day for curbside pickups. And it started to get out of control. But now we've managed it. Takes one person, me, dedicated to do nothing but dealing with the email orders, then giving it to a person who's a picker or personal shopper, if you will, and then a cashier that's dedicated doing nothing but taking the payment over the phone, and then the person comes, calls the store, and we bring the order out to them. So it has been very labor intensive, but the cashiers, wear gloves. We're doing sanitizing the shopping carts continuously throughout the day. We actually have a station set up there with the sanitizer for the carts. We've started recently making our own solution, bleach and water to spray the carts down with. We use other disinfectants to wipe down the countertops, the computers, the computer keyboards, and all that. But we're constantly cleaning the bathrooms in there, so customers, they feel safe when they come in the store. And the reason I can say that with certainty is we actually seeing a lot of elderly people 65 and older coming in during regular hours. And that tells me they feel safe coming in the store. Amy, anything else you want to touch base on there?
No, I think that's really good. I will just add to that particular category of social distancing. I have talked with garden centers that have had either security or police helping enforce their social distancing. A lot of times the garden center has very clear signs and what expectations are and asking their customers for help, but some of them have had gone on and taken that step of having security to help. Just in the instance of the garden center that's closest to me, this sheriff's deputy was directing people, if you want plants, don't come inside the store. Go ahead and just walk over to the greenhouses and the display of plants. So that was, I'm sure, more effective than if I was standing there telling them don't go in the store. But so there are a lot of different approaches you can take.
Yeah, I want to add a couple other things too, Amy. Everybody's area is going to be unique. So my situation is going to be different than Michael's, and it's different than Megan, anybody else's. All you guys know your market. You have to know your your clientele, and actually your town. I'll give you, and one other thing we do is we now scan, we have the laser scanners, whatever you call them, temperature readers. We actually scan everybody's forehead and read their temperature as they come to work every day. And the magic number is 100.4 degrees. If you hit that, you go home. But we actually scan everybody now when they come into work. But the only thing we weren't doing is requiring our cashiers to wear a mask. And I actually had a lady come in yesterday and question the cashier why she wasn't wearing it. And she said, well, we're not required to by any of the rules. She later went home and called me up and took me to the woodshed. And you just don't want to, Athens is a very liberal town, so you gotta be careful with what you say and what you do. She later then went on my Facebook page and posted a long comment about she doesn't recommend us because it's not a safe place anymore. And so you have to, make sure you know your area, and I'm sure all you folks do, and know what kind of backlash you can get for any and everything you do. And if anything, perception's reality. Whether or not your place is safe and you're doing everything you can, all it takes is one little thing, and if it hits social media, it could light a fire that you can't put out. So you have to be careful about that. Other things we do as far as protecting employees, like most of you, we used to feed them pizzas on certain days when they're unloading trucks and can't stop to eat on busy weekends. We no longer offer any food, any bottled water, anything, because I don't want to be responsible for somebody passing something to somebody else. So we don't do any of that anymore.
Stuart, do you want to talk about your approach to staff meetings, or if you've had a change to how you approach staff meetings, and what if someone becomes sick during their shift, or maybe they don't come to you saying I feel sick, but maybe like you're noticing that they have started to cough kind of with regularity. What is your approach there?
Okay, on the meetings, we actually canceled all employee meetings. We don't have any more. We have about 37 people on payroll, and it's impossible for us to have an employee meeting and guarantee everybody is spread out enough to be able to hold a meeting. We actually had, the first time we tried to do it and all this came about, we actually had employees that were fearful and wouldn't come. So I said, fine, we just won't do them. Now, management staff still meets, but we sit 6 feet apart out in an open area, and so we're social distancing there. I'll tell you folks, we use the Remind app. I don't know if any of y'all are familiar with that app. It actually, the high schools use it, some of the colleges use it. It's a very simple app. You download it, it's just called Remind, and it was started out by the teachers telling their students what areas to study for the day or whatever. So it's a great tool, and that's how I communicate with everybody on certain things. So you just enter their name and their phone number, and it's basically a texting app. So you can hit everybody, you can take pictures. We actually do our schedule that way now. We take a picture of the schedule and send it out to everybody with the Remind app. If there's issues, people not social distancing, I'll remind everybody, maintain 6 feet. So that's how we're communicating with employees right now. But regular employee training sessions, we've stopped all that. As far as sick, we did have early on a cashier working for us. Her dad called her one day and said his boss has tested positive for the virus. He wanted her to know that, and he was self-isolating. The second we found that out, we sent her home. And I actually took her cash register drawer, sprayed Lysol on it, and stuck in a bag for 3 days before we brought it back out. But we have employees. We let them know if they don't feel good. We have the CDC poster that tells all symptoms. Those are posted everywhere in the store, on the doors, in the bathrooms, by the schedule. Make everybody aware that if they got those symptoms, don't come to the work. And I did have one girl last week that wanted to come home early. She wasn't feeling well. I made a note of that. She came back the next day, and we took her temperature, and I, said, are you sure you're okay? And, before I let her work, we had to go through some steps to make sure we felt it was safe for her to come back. But the thing that may take us all down, I told Amy before we started this call, I said, knock on wood, we're having a great spring. Profits are up. We were down year to date going into the middle of March, not because of the virus, but because we've had 12 inches above rainfall for the first 2.5 months. By the middle of May, we'll be up for the year, and profits are going to be way up for the year. But knock on wood, but tomorrow, you don't know what tomorrow brings for this thing. Your world could be turned upside down. If I get the virus, and I've exposed other people to it, you don't know what's going to happen each day. That's the problem from my end I see on this. Every day is a different day.
Yeah, and I've read different places. It's important to have sort of a plan of action, sort of a contingency plan. What if someone in one of these key positions gets sick? What if multiples are sick? What if you have to operate with 40% of your force? And you mentioned that you and your manager are kind of doing a self-imposed isolation from one another.
Right. So my office manager, I had to learn how to do payroll. We do payroll electronically, direct deposit. About 3 weeks ago, we had to cross train each other. So I now know how to do payroll electronically, which I never knew how to do before. And this is a good thing. But we have a wall that separates us. We have tape on the floor in the office that nobody can pass that line on the floor and be near her. So her and I don't even get close together. And if I were to get sick, luckily I can work from home remotely. And my buyers, they're cross-trained enough that if one went out, the other one or myself could step in and do their job. But I assume most of you guys have already done that scenario. If you haven't, then I would highly recommend that you prepare for a key person or maybe two go out and be able to do their job duties for them.
So some cross training there. That's
Absolutely.
great advice. One of the things, well, let me move to a question that we have before we get too far away from when this individual made this comment. They asked, did you have to add staff to accommodate the additional tasks that you're taking on?
Yes, we did. Like I say, to do a curbside order, it basically involves 3 dedicated employees, and actually maybe 4. When we were getting 40 emails a day, I would have 2 people pulling orders, a cashier dedicated probably 80% of her day doing nothing but processing those orders over the phone, getting payment, and we'd have an area on our covered porch, which Michael Volk has seen, that we cleared off, and we put all the curbside carts right there. So when a customer calls in, they say, I'm here for my curbside pickup. We tell them to turn their flashers on so we can identify the car quickly. And I got that from Chick-fil-A, by the way. So all the carts are assembled there on the porch with their items in it and get it now. It's not perfect. We leave stuff off. Carts get left that are supposed to go to a car, so it's not perfect, but I'd say it's about 90% working well. But it is labor intensive. You are a personal shopper, as you people know, for these people. And sometimes I have to go back and forth with somebody 3 times, 4 times on an email trying to be clear with what they want. They don't include their phone number. I need to have their phone number. So actually in my signature, my email signature, in bright red letters, bold red letters, it states it may take us 2 to 3 days to get back to you on this. And when we hit Friday, I'll tell them it may be Monday through Wednesday and next week before we get back to you on your order. But I'll be specific, give us your phone number, be as specific as you can on what you want. So when I get that email order for curbside pickup or delivery, I hit reply. I don't have to type anything because I already have that message in my email signature. And I just simply reply back to them and make a copy to myself. So I know I've replied back to them. That message tells them, hey, it's going to be a couple days before we get back to you. 99% of the people are okay with that. They're just glad we're doing it, glad we're offering it, because the box stores don't do that.
And do you want to talk well, actually, let me take a minute to talk about the curbside orders, the online orders, the phone-in orders, because we had a garden center in Nashville that very generously shared some information. And they said that they typically would have 10 to 12 internet sales a week. Now they have 30 plus a day, 7 days a week. That went up to 70 a day when it went from safer at home to stay at home. And 3 Saturdays in a row, now it is 100. So now their question is, how do we fill them? So to your point, they actually had to close their store to walk-in business on Mondays just to keep up with this new type of ordering. And they've also reduced their hours during the day to allow them to pull those orders. So that's a whole other logistical issue, and I can imagine how much work it is to shop for someone else. So that's interesting, new dynamic for the garden center industry.
Yes, there's a couple ways you might be able to control that many of them. You can either do a minimum order, which we have gone to now. It's a $25 minimum order. I mean, we got somebody that wants 1 4-pack of tomatoes. Had one order today for 1 bag of place sand. So we went to a $25 minimum order. Some places are doing a $5, $10 pick fee, if you will, and or minimum. So if you get too many, yeah, you got to kind of control it either by a minimum order, a pick fee, some way, or let people know we'll be glad to do it, but it's going to be 3 to 4 days before we can get to you. And that'll tell some people, hey, I need it now. I'll just go ahead and come in the store. And I think what we're seeing right now is I'm seeing our curbside orders declining. At least they have been the last 2 days, and more in-store traffic is happening. And I think that's for a couple of reasons. One, people are tired of staying home since March 13th in Athens, Georgia. They want to get out. They want to exercise. They want to work in the yard. They want to plant the garden. They want to play with flowers, whatever. By coming in our store, they've seen that we're doing everything we can to maintain a safe environment for the customer as well as the employee. So they feel safe coming in here. And even though I told you about the instance of the lady of the face mask, we've had numerous people complimenting us on social media, in writing and emails and verbally, thanking us for all we're doing in there. So they feel safe when they come in the store. So more people are deciding to go ahead and come in the store instead of now emailing. And one other thing about this that's going to come about, we're in our peak season, so we can't do anything right now about having an online presence. But in our management staff meetings, we fully anticipate having an online curbside service probably offered now year round. What we'll probably do is limit your choices, and those items are never out of stock. For instance, this time next spring, if you want to buy a calibrachoa in a 4-inch pot, you're going to get maybe 5 choices. Okay, a red, a blue, a yellow, a white, whatever. That's it. That's all you get. Hanging baskets, you'll get 6 choices. Of course, your bag goods are easy. You can put that on there, but you hone them in and just limit their choices of what goes online. They pay for it online, so that takes me now out of the equation having to deal with them. So they pay for everything. They know what they're getting. Tell your buyers you're never out of stock in season on these items we're featuring on our website. And that's how you can kind of maintain it. You may have a minimum order, or you may have a pick charge. So once we slow down in the summertime, I fully anticipate everybody on this call and probably everybody in our industry is probably going to do some kind of an online presence. I'm going to try and do it with Square. Want to make it very basic, very simple, and something that doesn't have to have a webmaster to maintain it. Just needs to be very, and if something's sold out, you go in there and you pull it off your Square website. So something to easily maintain where you don't have to have an IT guy doing it. But I think that's the good thing that's going to come out of this. I think everybody's going to have some kind of an online presence, but you hone in only certain items you want to feature, and you limit their choices so it's easy to pick, and your buyers know that's a never out of stock item.
Yeah, and after talking with one of our local flower producers, they normally sell at a farmer's market, but now they've recently very quickly had to develop an online marketplace. I can appreciate from her comments having a limited inventory online. You know, if people want the full selection, come on out. But if you want to order online, not trying to represent every product you have makes a lot of sense, especially after hearing the trials and tribulations, you know, that she's been through.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably a matter of what platform you use too, and we'll all get better at that and well versed on the pros and cons of the different platforms. That might be something the Center for Rural Enterprise Development will have available. I know they have a touchless payment system blog post, I think it went out yesterday, that's very detailed information that can help people that are looking at making some of those transitions. I wanted to ask you before we get too late in our webinar about your approach to advertisement and social media, because we know that sort of aggressive advertising contributed to an issue in another state that did lead to some garden centers being shut down and others in that state being told, we're watching you. So share with us, if you will, what your approach has been.
Yeah, that's a great point, Amy. When this thing started, and again, because of my market, and right now there's actually a website in Athens on Facebook, I should say, that the governor in Georgia has allowed restaurants, gyms, tattoo parlors, hair salons to open up if they want to on Friday. And there's actually a Facebook page shaming people who open up. That's what they've resulted to. They're shaming people that choose to open if they were non-essential before. So I knew to be very careful and not promote people to come in mass to our store. I knew that was a no-no. What I did do on Facebook and on Instagram is just feature a picture of a dogwood, or just, we got in these beautiful dahlias. I put a picture on there and all I said was, wow. That was it. So we never, and even to this day, so far in spring, we have never promoted, we've got this on sale, come in, they're in limited quantities. I've never featured anything for people to react to come in the store. So you got to get it this weekend. You got to get it today, on sale, limited quantities. Never done any of that to encourage people to swarm. That's a no-no. What I have done is featured pictures of flowers, just some like, wow, look at this. I did one a couple days ago on dogwoods, featured the ones I had left in stock, and showed a picture of the bloom and the name of it. That's all I did. I didn't say got them on sale, limited quantities, nothing. Just a picture of it with the name of it and the features of that plant. And guess what? We sold probably 35 of those shortly. The biggest thing that I've done that's gone ballistic is I bought a stainless steel grill. I belong to True Value Hardware, Home and Garden Showplace division. They had a stainless steel grill at a closeout that I paid, I think, $275 for. And I was going to use it for our open house, which was the first weekend in April that we canceled. I was going to use that as a giveaway. And I still had this freaking grill I need to give away. So I said, okay. I put on Facebook a picture of the grill, and I said, look, we're going to give away this grill April 30th. And guess what? You don't even have to come in the store. You don't have to buy anything. All you have to do is like and share this page, and you're automatically entered in the contest. We also did that on Instagram. So as of tonight, and we did that about 10 days ago. Let me see if I got the date of the post right here. Let me share this with you. This is pretty astounding. It was done on April 14th is the post. We have 621 likes, 953 shares, and have reached 39,000 people with that post.
Wow.
So everybody is sitting at home Facebooking right now. So if you put it out there, they're reading it. But you do not want to encourage people to come swarming into your stores because, and everybody knows your own market. Everybody's market is different. But if I were to do that in my town, I'd be run out of town.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that because David Bates with Bates Nursery and Garden Center in Nashville shared that he had something as just as innocent as a coupon, and has twice, it was already set up to run, and he said that he delayed it, I think, twice, and now it's actually set to run in September because he didn't want to give the impression of all of the things that you mentioned, encouraging people to rush out and that kind of the pressure to be there in person and that sort of thing. So really interesting, the steps that can be taken, just like you said, perception's reality. So making sure that people don't get the wrong impression about simple promotional effort.
Right. And like I say, even though in Georgia garden centers are deemed essential and be open, you sure don't want to make your local officials mad and your health department. So it's okay. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to find something wrong and we'll shut you down by the health department. So we got a bone thrown to us by staying open, and my sales are way up. We're up 30, 40, 50% every day right now. And I've done no newspaper advertising, virtually no radio, no nothing. It's simply social media and just being real low keyed about it. So you don't have to go out there and do all those things that you normally would do. People are dying to come into a garden center right now anyway to stress relief and grow their own vegetables.
That's great information, Stuart. I'm thinking at this point we're a little bit past the time we had intended to end. So I want to turn it over to Nathan, who's going to talk kind of briefly about how to use gloves properly, if that's a choice you want to make for your garden center.
Okay. Amy, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So just to think about ways that you can use your gloves. A lot of times we think about using gloves potentially in the hospitals and other things like that, but also reaching out to be able to use your gloves properly and being able to take them off properly. So as far as to start with just of touching things, touching things the same way that you would CDC guidelines there you see on your screen, as well as being able to take those off. You can see grabbing them around the wrist area and then removing them and sliding them inside out and washing your hands. So when you get ready to put them on, you want to do the same thing. You want to wash your hands as you first, then put your gloves on, and then minimize any type of contact points that you come in contact with. So if you do think about the things that you touch, if you do touch your face, that is a point of contact that you can cross-contaminate things with things that are in the garden center. So let's say you cough in your hand, and then you go around and you touch the lip of the plants, plant pots. Those are type things that you can potentially be spreading. So think about those type things as you go through, and then as you're using those gloves, same way. If you are having a glove, the gloves are a great reminder to say, hey, wait, let's not touch our face, or hey, let's think about this contact point that you're about to touch. in order to prevent any type of spread of anything. And then once you take your gloves off, to be able to wash your hands again from that aspect.
Thank you, Nathan. Megan, do you want to talk money handling now?
Sure, we can talk about that. We can talk about pricing and managing payment a little bit. Stuart did a great job of talking about adding additional costs of labor, and there's also probably some additional costs of cleaning supplies and things there. So when you're setting your prices this year, be sure to take those extra costs into account to try to remain profitable during this time. If you're doing online sales or perhaps even in-store or in-market sales, one potential might be to create some easy to purchase product bundles that people oftentimes purchase products together. They can pick up one thing and go, or if you're doing an online order, they can click on one item of that bundle and purchase a whole group of items at once. Do take note, our financial analysis specialist tells us that if even one item in that bundle is subject to sales tax, then the entire bundle is subject to sales tax. So our plants that we raise on our farm are not subject to sales tax, but if we're adding a pretty pot in a bundle with those plants, then all of a sudden the whole bundle is taxable, subject to sales tax. If we're thinking about managing payment, certainly if you can have that payment happen online before pickup, that is the easiest way to be contactless. But if you are having a cashier, try to find some ways to socially distance or put up a barrier between the cashier and the customers. So some grocery stores I've been to and some other stores, and Amy has some great pictures, have used some plexiglass or plastic to create a barrier you can see through, but will prevent air and droplets and things from passing through. Another way to add some distance is to add another table in front of the counter, so that physical barrier, people can't get as close as they could with the original counter. It may be helpful to try to go cashless or communicate a preference for credit and debit card, or offer contactless payment options such as Venmo or PayPal, where they can do that money transfer on the phone. If folks can slide their own credit card and your cashier doesn't have to touch that credit card, that's good. And consider raising the limits on your credit card processor so that people don't have to sign for those purchases. If you do need to accept cash, try to get folks to pay with exact change if possible. That's kind of difficult to do. But that money can be very, very dirty. So if folks do pay with cash, if they could not hand that to the cashier, but perhaps lay it out in a some sort of container where the cashier doesn't have to touch it, and so they can see how much it is, and then provide change from cash that's been out of circulation for I've seen between 3 to 5 days. So I would go on the longer end of that. Some coronaviruses linger on paper for 5 days. So if you can put some cash away and use that for change, that can be helpful.
Thank you, Megan. I appreciate that. I'm going to just display the disclaimer before we get to the very end here, and want to open it up to any questions that you all may have. We have 2 that were emailed in advance, and we can start with those and give you all a chance to type in any questions that you have. One of the questions that we got earlier today was, how do I know if I can open my business? And I don't know where this person was located, if they're in the state of Tennessee or elsewhere. but you can check the governor's office for updates on the stay at home and when that expires, and then your local county health department and county government for more stringent stay at home orders. The metropolitan areas in Tennessee have their own health department regulations that govern that. And the other question that we got in advance was a really good one.
Amy, I might chime in on that last one a little bit, if you don't mind, before moving on to the next one.
No, go ahead.
I think you mentioned before that agriculture has been deemed essential. So if you consider your garden center agriculture, then I would, print that out and go with agriculture as an essential business. And in Tennessee anyway, agriculture is an essential business and you can be operating unless your local municipality has something a little bit stricter. If any of our specialists or TDA representatives know anything different than that, feel free to weigh in.
No,
all right,
good.
thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Good clarification. If that question came from someone in Tennessee, they should be fine, because they should qualify as essential if they're truly a garden center. The email just simply said, how can I know when I can reopen? So there was not an address or a zip code or area code. So we're kind of just doing our best to cover the possible scenarios. The other question that we got in advance was, how can protect customers and employees from contaminated plastic? And I think kind of touched on a scenario and someone might contaminate plastic. So all the little 6-packs, all the plastic pots, and they had the individual asking the question had actually gone to the trouble to locate an article in a medical journal where they had established that the coronavirus can live 3 days on plastic. And I don't know all of the specifics on that. That might be a minimum of 3 days. I don't know. But given that it can survive on plastic and still be capable of infecting for some period of time, it's very good to be cognizant of that. So washing hands frequently in terms of employees, customers when they get home, washing hands, not everyone, not touching your face. And that might be one useful aspect of a mask, is it does at least prevent you from touching your nose and your mouth if you have contaminated your hands. You can wear gloves. Just remember, you can cross-contaminate. So you have to be cognizant of what you touch once you've got your gloves on. And Nathan talked about that. In the store, customers not only touching the one they're going to buy helps. And you all may have other suggestions. I don't know, Megan, Mark, others, if you guys have anything else you'd like to add, or Stuart, if you've got other suggestions.
I think, this is Nathan. I think Stuart hit on a good one at the very beginning of his presentation as well, talking about propping open doors and all like that to keep people from other touch points, So I just want to reiterate that one as well, to try to minimize the amount of traffic flow. The direction is good, so folks know which way to go. And then just minimizing those point of contacts for folks by propping those doors open or removing any type of gates or anything like that that could potentially could hold people back, or something that they would have to touch, latches or something where they move through the garden centers.
Yeah, the slide I put up really has more to do with air than a surface you would touch, but what you said reminded me of it, so I thought it's just a good opportunity to visually reinforce that concept that Stuart mentioned about one entrance door doors designated for entrance and doors designated for exiting. So you're not coming face to face on someone as you come and go.
There's a comment here about bringing your own bags. And, this is kind of a year that we're encouraging at farmers markets and for CSAs and things to use one-time use bags and not reusable bags and bins and boxes, because that virus can be on those types of items. So is that consistent with what you've heard, Amy or Nathan or Mark?
Sorry, I could get myself off mute. Yeah, that's consistent. That's good.
That's hard for us because we've been pushing being earth friendly and sustainable that way, but this year is different in many ways, and so we've got to think differently and make the highest priority at the time.
Well, I don't see any new questions in the chat box, and we have gone over our time a little bit. So at this point, I'd really like to thank Stuart, the Tennessee Department of Agriculture, the UT Center for Profitable Ag, and the various departments at UT that helped contribute to this webinar. I appreciate you all being here tonight, and everyone stay safe and have a good rest of your evening.